Hello? Hello? Someone there?
Hello?
Yeah, hi.
I think everybody just logged in.
Someone there?
So I can call from my cell phone then. What?
Rachel, is that you?
No, actually, this is Linda Greenham from Pepco.
Hi, Linda.
I'm here as well, Andrea.
Andrea. Hi, Andrea. Hi, everybody. I was just going to join the meeting. Is that okay?
Of course.
Okay.
Hey, Carolyn.
Hey, Carolyn.
I'm here as well. It's Rachel.
Hi, Rachel.
Hi.
I think I'm in the meeting. I'm hearing others.
Good.
Hello? Somebody.
Hello.
Hello, this is Jay. I'll mute myself until you tell me to speak. How about that?
Welcome, Mary. Angry Molad here.
Okay. There's a big N Abigail, there's a big N in the middle of this instead of a picture. Why do I have a big N in the middle of
In the
this?
middle of your screen?
Yeah, big, huge N in a circle. Mm-hmm. Maybe I should.
Just a second.
Oh, wait, never mind.
Someone's speaking.
Oh, okay. So that dropped to the bottom. I don't know about this WebEx. It's not like what we do with Zoom, but is there like a hand raising thing here or what? How does this
I don't
work?
think they do hand raising.
How do we,
Around.
somebody
I think
just
you'll
raised his hand. No, there's usually a little thing on the side to say raise your hand. I don't
Right.
That's
what it has.
Well, I'm gonna mute myself, and then you will tell me what to say and what you wish from me. Okay? I'm gonna mute myself for the time being. Abigail, don't go anywhere because this. Oh,
I am not.
Did we lose her?
I think we're all muted. No?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, David. How are you, Carolyn?
Hey, Carolyn. How's Ohio?
It's been quite an odyssey for the last month. But I'm sure we all have our stories to tell. Listen.
It's a woman.
Hi. Monica, are you here?
Hi, this is Faith Mullen. I'm attending the meeting.
Hi. I'm looking for our chair, Monica Nemeth.
Okay, great. I'm glad I logged in. Thank you so much.
Very welcome. We're all trying to find our way. Andrea, you're here, right? Andrea? I have to find my commissioner. Andrea. David was here, and then he's... David, are you still here? Yep.
Yeah.
Nope, that's not David. Andrea, you're here?
Yeah.
Is Monica here?
Naomi Carolyn's here too. I'm just not on
Hi, Carolyn.
visual.
Okay.
My connection isn't really all that fast. So,
Oh, I'm glad you're here. Great. Leah? Yeah. Monica? So as many of you know, Monica is our chair. We tested this last night. It worked perfectly. Okay. Rachel, are you here?
yeah, I'm here. Monica's not on yet. She sent me the host key, so she should be getting on any second.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'm wowed at how many people joined. That's terrific.
Yeah, it is.
There are 42 people.
That's great. And we haven't crashed yet.
We haven't even said anything yet. Maybe that's when everyone will start dropping off.
That's funny.
Somebody is sharing their screen with all of us.
Okay.
Did we lose Mary?
Someone talk?
No, Mary's still here.
Yeah,
Oh, there she is.
There
Hi.
you are.
So that
Sorry,
happened.
we're just waiting for our chair, who will be joining any second, we hope. Apologize for the delay. Still any update from Monica?
Hi. Please.
So maybe Carolyn is vice chair or Andrea, because we went over the agenda with Monica, we should maybe start with just looking at the agenda and.
Is Monica
She's
not
up with
here?
us. I
Yeah,
don't
the
think
two.
Monica
All right.
is here.
Do we get steak?
Can I ask a question?
Okay.
Usually,
Of course.
swear in a new member, they have to be sworn in before you have the, so.
Ah,
Yes.
Yeah, that has to happen first.
Is
That has to happen first.
That makes sense. Yeah.
that makes sense, and
She has to swear in the person before the meeting starts.
okay.
Okay.
So I have two requests. One, somebody is sharing their screen, and maybe if you could, if you know how to stop doing that, that would be great. Then we'd have a chance of seeing David and Mary. Thank you. And if you could do, at this point, everyone mute themselves, and then we'll get into sort of the rules of how people can raise a hand and contribute.
Sorry, I don't know how. I just seem to be in a
There's
separate
Monica.
room. I don't know how that happened.
Okay, well, welcome. We're so glad to have you. You're
Um,
now in the same room we are. So Mary pointed out that we need to swear in our new member before we start the meeting. So we were just about to do that.
Okay. So,
Mary, over to you.
Yes, is Mr. Castile handy somewhere?
He is.
Okay, so I don't see you, but what I'd like you to do, please, is to raise your right hand.
Raised.
Okay, and then repeat after me. What? I'm sorry, everybody else should be muted. Okay? I, David Castile,
I, David Castile,
having been duly elected
having been duly elected
as a Commissioner of the Advisory Neighborhood Commissions
as a member of the Advisory Neighborhood Commissions
of the District of Columbia,
of the District of Columbia,
do solemnly swear or affirm that
I solemnly swear and affirm that
I, David Castile,
I, David Castile,
will support and defend
will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the United States,
that I will perform such duties
that I will perform such duties
as may be assigned to me
as may be assigned to me
as a member of said commissions
as a member of said commissions
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
without fear or favor,
without fear or favor,
that I will exercise my best judgment
that I will exercise my best judgment
and will consider each matter before me
and will consider each matter before me
from the viewpoint of the best interest
from the viewpoint of the best interest Sorry, could you repeat that last part?
of the District of Columbia as a whole,
Of the District of Columbia as a whole,
and that I will faithfully discharge said duties.
and that I will faithfully discharge said duties.
Okay, you're done. You're sworn in. There's no going back.
Yay!
Thank you.
Welcome, welcome.
Congratulations. Welcome. Yes.
David,
very
Long time coming.
pleased to have our seat filled.
Virtual champagne for everybody.
So, welcome everyone to our first virtual meeting. Sorry for my hiccup. I somehow wound up in a different room with a different link. I'm not quite sure how that happened. But hey, you know, it's the first time, so we're going to have to kind of work through all this. So for those who don't know me, Monica Nemeth. I am chair of 3F and also commissioner for 3F06. And as you all saw, we just swore in our newest member, David Steele, for 3F01. And I'm just going to do a roll call. I'm not even sure who we have amongst our commissioners. I think we have everyone tonight, but I'm just going to let's see if I can even figure this out. Yep. Normally I just look down the table, I can see everyone in a row. We just go down the row, but I'm just going to call it out as I see it. So, Carolyn?
I'm here. 3F02.
Thank you. And she's our vice chair. Let's see, Andrea.
I'm here. Andrea Molide, 3F05, Commission Secretary.
And Naomi.
Naomi Ruttenberg, 3F03, Commission Treasurer.
And Leah.
Freelinghuisen here, 3F04, Commissioner for 3F04.
And of course, David, feel free to introduce yourself.
David Christille, 3F01. Great to be here. Thanks.
And again, welcome everyone, and welcome to our first virtual meeting. So first order of business tonight is, well, I guess now it's the second order of business since we did our swearing in right at the top, is the review and approval of our agenda. And so obviously we've already covered the swearing in portion, so that we can strike as item number 3. Any comments on the agenda from any of the commissioners?
Nope.
Do I hear a motion?
Okay, thank you.
Do I hear a motion to approve?
I move to approve the agenda. That's Naomi.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Great. Okay, so let's start with commissioner updates and announcements. I'll just go down the line. Andrea?
Yeah, I got nothing.
Okay. Carolyn?
I have a little something in case everybody on the commission and in my S&D hasn't heard. I have decamped to Ohio to take care of my 94-year-old mother. So I am virtually participating in all the business of the ANC pretty much in the cloud these days. But anyway, I'm still here. I'm still a DC resident. So it is what it is. Maybe someday I'll get back there sometime soon.
Understood. And we trust your mother's okay?
She is actually in the hospital, but not with COVID. So.
We sure will.
Yeah, thank you.
And let's see, Leah.
No updates for SMD04.
Okay, and Naomi?
No updates. I just do want to give a shout out to everybody in the SMD who I'm seeing a lot more of as of late. A lot of people out walking with distancing, with good cheer, and looking out for neighbors. So thanks everybody. I really appreciate the spirit at this time.
I second that. I certainly have noticed that throughout my SMD and throughout the neighborhood. I take long walks these days, and I certainly do see a lot of people out, and everyone is really very cordial and very friendly, and we're all in this together. It's nice to see us pull together as a community. David, do you have any?
I have nothing new, but I think it's, I'm a relatively new resident to Washington, D.C. I've been here about 4 years now, and so I'm really excited to get to know people in the neighborhood. This is a little bit of a different time to do it. And then for those of you that are out there watching that live in 3F01, it may take me a little while to get my email set up, but once I do, certainly encourage your feedback and look forward to working with you. But, and again, I'd like to sort of echo what's been said about the spirit of the community and people, you know, keeping a kind of positive spirit in the wake of something that's quite awful in many ways. So, thanks.
Thank you. And so, well, there's all sorts of things to say, but what I'll just simply say is I appreciate how much the community has pulled together in this difficult time. And, you know, the posted a story about Van Ness and the businesses of Van Ness. I guess it's going on a month now. And they did that story, and it's a heartbreaking story. And really, I really just, well, I'm just devastated just reading the article itself with what everyone's going through economically. So we're going to pull together. We're going to get through this, but it's going to be tough. And let's just stay strong, and you know, together we'll be able to get through this. The other thing, I'm just going to do a shout out or a reminder. So I got an email from Melissa Bird about the census just before this call. Yes, Gloria recognized you during community update at this moment. Everyone, remember, we got a census this year. Our census response rate's a little down, which is understandable considering it's not the first and foremost thought in everyone's mind. Please, 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 if you haven't responded, please do so, and encourage all your friends, neighbors, family. Make sure you get your census questionnaires in. It's easy to do online, and please get that done. So, Gloria, go right ahead.
Thank you, Monica. I just wanted to provide an update from Van Ness Main Street. I do want to thank everyone in the community who has been supporting the businesses as well as contributing to our own Van Ness Main Street Growth Fund. Just wanted to kind of follow up what Monica said. We do have 37 businesses in total, and many of you may not know, but this year we have been working with the businesses all the way up to Nebraska Avenue. Thanks to Council Member Che, we were given some budget to help them, and we have been working with them very closely. Out of our 37 total businesses, we have 14 that are closed, either voluntarily or through mayor's order. 2 have been delayed in opening. We have a total of now more than 300 laid off staff and part-time staff. On the positive note, Van Ness Main Street, as I said, has been working very closely with them. We have been able to supply $54,000 in direct grants to our businesses, and that is to help them with stopover where they can get the DC emergency grant or the SBA loans. We have heard that 2 of our businesses have already received PPP money under the CARES Act, so that's good news. We've also provided over 140 hours of TA and promotion, and some things to look forward to. We are going to go forward with our annual meeting on Friday, May 1. We'll be continuing to make that announcement virtual, and stay tuned for some events that we're already trying to schedule in the future. But we really appreciate everyone, and if you want to get on our mailing list for our e-blast, it's info@vanessmainstreet.org. Thank you, Monica.
Thank you, Gloria. And so that's really it with the commissioner updates. Committee reports. I know there hasn't been any committee meetings, as far as I know, right now during the crisis, but I do have a couple of updates there. But I'll start with, we have Bob with us for Parks and Trails, or Streets and Sidewalks, is Bob Daly.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, Bob, wonderful.
Oh, good. Hello.
Hey, Bob.
Hey, how are you? Yeah, well, we, of course, have not been having any Streets and Sidewalks Committee meetings. The activity that we had anticipated for the spring, of course, was the Connecticut Avenue traffic study, and that has been put on hold, as I understand. So, we're just waiting on that. Otherwise, I'm thinking about having some virtual committee meetings in the coming months, and I'll consult with the commissioners about that. So that's really all the report I have for now.
Hey, Monica, this is Carolyn. Do we have information on how the committees can use the WebEx site? Do we have all that information?
Yes, I mean, the WebEx itself, all the commissioners have the ability to launch it, so we can all go ahead and launch it, and I think we can figure out a way to make this available so committee chairs can make use of it. We can certainly make use of all this.
Okay.
At our disposal. So.
Maybe you and I can talk or reach out to each other.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And so the next committee up is Parks and Trails. And so, do we have anyone from Parks and Trails here by any chance? Okay, well, the announcement I have for Parks and Trails is we will have a new chair for Parks and Trails, Erica Rosenberg.
That's awesome.
Has agreed to take on the chair of Parks and Trails. So we're excited about that. Ever since Alex moved, we haven't had leadership there, and we really needed it. So I'm very, very happy to have her take over that. So that's the news for Parks and Trails. Anything out of housing?
Is George here by any chance? If not, then David, there's an email from him. You want to present that?
Sure. And so I think the Housing Committee, his Neighborhoods Committee, has met a couple times, actually a few times in February and March. And I think the main item that we worked on was essentially a letter to Anita Bonds, who's the council chair of the Housing and Community Development Committee there. And I think the letter really kind of focused on a few things. One, we talked about the budget hearing that was, or actually the roundtables that were held in February, and some committee discussions around that. And essentially, the letter supports the expansion of planned housing in Ward 3 that could include some transitional affordable units, and also called for increased funding for mental health and reviewing voucher recipients given the need for accurate assessments. We're also looking at planned developments in other cities such as New York and around the region to sort of look at some models that we can, kind of as perhaps best practices for us. I think in the process of trying to set up a meeting with Councilmember Che to talk about, kind of share ideas and get our thoughts on thinking about housing affordability in Ward 3. Andrew, anything else to add to that?
Nope.
And I see a question in the chat room. Is the letter to Councilmember Bonds posted on the ANC 3F website?
That I'm not aware of.
No.
It has not been. It has
Yeah.
not been, not yet.
And we need to set up, and I have this kind of as a memo to myself, we need to set up a separate section for housing itself, the Housing Committee. So we'll get on that, and we'll see to it that materials get posted up there.
Monica, before moving into the other agenda items, do you want to just talk a little bit about some behaviors or norms for the call in terms of writing in the chat, raising their hands,
Sure. If anyone has questions, you can either write in the chat room and just ask the question, and we'll monitor the chat room. And raise your hand. There's an icon that appears. I'm trying to scroll through the list of participants to see when, you know, a hand is raised, and maybe Rachel could help us out with calling it to our attention.
Yeah, I've been monitoring it as far as the raising hands.
Okay. And then just, you know, call talk. Just let us know, basically. We're trying to keep an eye on things, and we'll figure out the flow. Though if you're able to ask in the chat room, that would be great, because then I flags immediately and I can see it, and then when there's a break, you can do it. And for those folks who are actually dialed in and are not on the screen, just I just have to say, just let us know when you have a question when there's a break. So, any questions so far? Okay. I'm thinking grants, since we have a grant application coming up later in the agenda. You want to just address anything with grants at that point, Andrea, or is there anything?
No, there's nothing much to say. We're in the middle of a grant cycle, and normally we would have asked for grants to be presented in March so we could vote on them in April. But I'm proposing that we get the presentation and the voting both happening when the item comes up later in the agenda.
Okay, thank you. So with that, let us move on to a topic that I know has become a very hot topic in the last few days, and that is the issue of the days in and COVID-19 and its use as a site. So I want to thank Jamie from, have Larry Henderham also here from DHS. And so I'm just going to turn it over to the two of you, and if you would please let us know who else we have here from DC government presenting on this topic. I would appreciate it, and the floor is all yours.
Commission Secretary here. I just appreciate that anybody speaking introduce themselves, spell their name. Thank you.
Can I interject before we get into the topic?
Yes, please, Councilmember Shea.
And it's a follow-on to some of the things that you discussed, so I don't want to lose it. Bob, who does streets and sidewalks, I just wanted to tell you that DDOT is looking at different places aside from areas around grocery stores where they might make room, typically on the road or in parking lots, for pedestrians. And it might be more expansive than what they were willing to do at the outset. And DDOT has said that they would like you, and I'm sorry I don't have the information here, I wasn't planning to get into the specifics, but they would like requests to come through the ANC. I mean, I pester them enough, but to come through you guys about areas that you think, or roads that you think should be set aside for pedestrians and bikes. That's number one. Okay. Number two, David, you said that you wanted to meet with me about housing. So that's great. We are a little constrained right now, but if you do want to meet with me, there's a woman by the name of Abigail McLean. And so you would be in touch with her, A. McLean at dccouncil.us, and she can set something up for us. And then I had one more thing that came out of your reports that I know what I wanted to tell you. The budget has been delayed. Usually it would have been dropped by now to the council, and then we have 56 days to act on it. But now it'll come sort of in middle of May, and we'll still have 56 days. But we're going to have a sort of a truncated hearing process. And I want to tell you all this And so you can talk to whomever may be interested in this. We're going to have different processes depending upon the committee. For example, my committee, Transportation and the Environment, and the DMV and DPW, and knows what else is in there, our approach is going to be to have ask everybody who's a non-government person to submit their testimony in writing, preferably before the hearing, so that the committee can incorporate whatever we take out of these submissions in the hearing. But the hearing will be, although it will be public and people will have access, the actual witnesses, live, virtually live witnesses, will only be government officials. And so I just wanted to flag that for you so that you know. So other than that, I just wanted, before we lost the thread, now, and I'm sorry to interrupt before getting into days in, but I wanted to put that out there. That's it.
I appreciate that. And kind of a follow-up question, the date of the hearing again is May of what?
No, there are no hearing dates set yet. The date when the mayor has to bring us the budget, that's the opening salvo, so to speak. She has to put it together, and it comes to us, and then what happens is we parse out pieces of it to go to the relevant committees. The committees then pore over it and then have hearings on their portions of it. Those dates have not been set.
And
Councilwoman, can I ask a question, please? This is Commissioner Ruttenberg. When the DDOT request for roads for bikes and pedestrians, is that now during the COVID period to close and give more space and access for bikes and pedestrians, or is this a longer term?
No. It's only for this emergency period.
Okay, super. Thank you.
And for the purposes of these hearings, you're saying only government personnel will be able to testify, will be only be able to be witnesses. Are ANC commissioners and counted as part of that list?
No, what I meant to say, and this will shrink it, agency officials of the relevant agencies that relate to the budget.
Okay.
So, for example, I have DDOT, I have DPW, so I expect to have the directors of those agencies come and testify on what their budget means and, where there may be issues that the council has about what they're asking for.
Thank you for that clarification.
Though we love you very much, of course.
Oh, I certainly understand.
It's agency heads or their staff. And
I have one.
that, by the way, that's my committee. Other committees may have some slightly different arrangements. But
I have one.
Announced at some point.
I'm raising my hand. This is Carolyn Keebler. Mary, I have one real quick question before we go on to something. Since you were talking about delays and changes of schedule and processes, how is all this affecting the DC comp plan update?
Oh, that's a very good question. I think everything will be on pause until we get through the budget.
Okay.
So I don't think I don't think you can anticipate any movement. Now, I could be wrong because the chairman will set the agenda for that. But in fact, we were just talking last night, and he effectively said that, pretty much when we get the budget, which would be, as I said, in about a month, that's going to be the singular focus. But again, I guess we all have to, keep our ears open because something could be announced. But as of now, everything else should be paused.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So then, Jamie and crew, I'll let you guys get for.
Good evening, Monica and the ANC. My name is Jamie Hauser. I represent the Days Inn on Connecticut Avenue in Washington, D.C. My name is spelled Jamie Howser. And we should have Chris Geldart with us from DHS. Chris, are you on the line?
Chris Geldart's here. I'm not from DHS, but I am running the operations for the COVID event.
Okay. So, Chris, why don't you take it away and you can answer questions from DC's perspective, and I can answer questions from the hotel's perspective.
Sorry, Chris, can I ask you to tell me your last name again? Andrew Molester.
Sure. It's Chris Geldart, Geldart. In my day job, I am your DPW director. For the emergency, the mayor's asked me to run the operations for the citywide COVID response.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. So for the chair, would you like me to give an overview, or do you guys want to start in with questions? I think it might be good to just do an overview of what we're doing in several hotels across the city. Would that be helpful?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Due to the unprecedented event that we all are experiencing, there are many vulnerable populations in the District of Columbia. And as we look at how to best support the vulnerable populations across the District of Columbia, there were the necessity to be able to quarantine for some folks that may have been exposed to the COVID-19 virus, the coronavirus, and in some cases, quarantine from exposure or quarantine from known infection to the virus. So one of the things we did was look for space throughout the city where folks that were either not able to go back to their homes because maybe they had an elderly person in their home or somebody that had was more vulnerable to the disease, could not go home, or some of our other vulnerable populations like those in our shelter spaces that don't have some place to convalesce like a home, and we wanted to make sure they weren't infecting more people. We looked for space throughout the city, found several hotels who were willing to help in this cause, and entered into a contractual relationship with them in order to help us be able to provide the space for folks that we wanted to put in quarantine in case they had become exposed until we knew they weren't, or if there were those that were exposed and did not have a home to convalesce in, to go to do their convalescence like everybody else would do at home. So we're very grateful to them for doing that, for providing that space for folks to do that. In the case that we have here, which you all have in your area, is the Days Inn. We're very grateful to be working with them. At the Days Inn, well, let me take it in the aggregate for a second. We have 5 hotels across the city. Of those 5, we have 222 people that we have in some form of isolation or quarantine. So that's what we have across the city. Now that number goes up and comes down depending on how many folks that we have at any given time. So if they're quarantined folks, so in other words, they may have been exposed or they couldn't go home for a reason because somebody was either positive at home and they were vulnerable, or vice versa. It could be anywhere from a 5-day stay to a 14-day stay in the isolation or quarantine. So at each of the facilities, we have a medical staff that is there just to ensure if anybody gets worse and they need some somebody to check in on them to say whether they need to go to the hospital or not, to help with that. We do have some medical folks on site. They're not there to do medical procedures. They're really just there to be checking in on folks and see how they're doing. In some cases, to help some folks get medications if necessary. That's what the medical staff is there to do, to just be doing daily, several times a day checks on the folks that are there to make sure that we have that capacity to quickly move people to a higher level of care if necessary, whether that be a hospital or another facility like that. We have staff that are there to generally check on the needs and ensure folks are receiving meals and rooms are being cleaned and all that sort of stuff. And we also have some security staff on board as well to ensure that we have an orderly process within there. And that is when everybody comes into the facility, regardless of where they're coming from, they are told that they are there for isolation and quarantine and need to stay in the rooms in which they are in. Food is brought to everybody on an individual basis every day. And we make sure that the folks have a place to convalesce or have a place to quarantine over their time. So I think I'll leave it at that and see. I don't know if our friends from the Days Inn want to add to that at all, or if we won't have any questions.
Chris, this is Jamie Hauser. Thank you for giving that overview of what's going on. And everything that we've seen at the hotel falls right in line with everything that Chris has stated. So, and they've been absolutely great to work with through this very, very difficult time.
Thank you, Jamie. I think let me just, if I could, just add one more thing before we go to questions. There were some concerns I know that were raised from a report that was done news about this. I can say that as your DPW director, I am ensuring that we have ensured that the contractor, in the case of the Days Inn, which is Waste Management, understands there's an increased need for trash collection. They also know, as we've informed them and many others, that all of the trash there is not medical waste. It's the same type of trash that would be produced from anybody's house, and anybody's house that might have a COVID, somebody that's at home. So we've talked with them, and they've increased their trash pickup to ensure that there's no overflowing trash that's there. We've also talked to the staff because there was concern about some staff coming out of the Days Inn in their personal protective equipment. We don't believe that that necessarily was the case that has happened. The personal protective equipment that folks are coming out of the hotel with, and we have ensured that this will happen, is the same personal protective equipment that people would wear out in public. So a face covering, maybe a mask, and potentially gloves if that's what they need to wear or feel they need to wear. So those are two things that I know that were in the report that I just wanted to make sure I covered, and I turn it over to anybody for questions.
Before we go to questions, I would ask if I could have the floor. Is that okay? I'm asking the chair.
Yes, please. Sorry, I was on mute.
Yes. I had some questions, some of which I put to the executive. We have a mayor council call every day, and we can ask questions about various things. And this came up. So I did ask questions there about this site, because the first way I learned about it was walking down Connecticut Avenue, and a reporter saw me, and it was like a drive-by interview. And so that's how I found out about it. And so one of the questions I had is why no notice was given to me. And the answer from the city administrator wasn't very satisfying. It was simply, well, we were in a hurry, we want to save lives, and so, we didn't do that. Now, it only takes a minute to call me up or to send me an email, so that was an unsatisfactory explanation. That's number one. And then I want to know, and I still don't know, I sent a letter to the head of HHS and the health department. Why was this site selected? The city administrator said it was selected because this hotel was someone that the city knew would be willing to work with them. But that wasn't what I was seeking, because as you know, the Days Inn is located in a very busy section of Connecticut Avenue. There's a lot of foot traffic there. There's foot traffic to, Bread First. There's foot traffic to the cleaners. People go on up to Giant or to the pharmacy. There's a lot of activity there. And so I was curious why that site was selected, or just tell me what the criteria is for selection of a site. And then, hello, Director Geldart, how are you? I did ask about the operation of the facility, Is it an independent contractor that we've engaged for these services? And what particular instructions have been given? And the personal protective equipment director actually included a gown and some other items apparently. So what I'm wondering is, since people in that facility could either have been found to have the virus or are awaiting tests to see whether they're positive or are just isolating, since that's the case, it may be that some of the equipment that they wear may have exposure to the virus. And so there was a question about whether someone going out of the facility wearing that, and it's not just a mask and gloves, but it can be beyond that. Is that considered medical waste? Is that something that folks should be going out into the stores with? And, you know, more to the point, because this is what Director Nesbitt of the Health Department said. She said, well, you know, anytime you go out in public now, because the virus has spread, community spread, you're always at risk. So you should wear a mask and you should do your distancing, etc. But my point is that we shouldn't, as a government, increase the risk in any way. So what happened by not giving any notice to people, by not having any understanding about how things were being run there, people thought they were being put in a position where they were at more risk created by the government. So I think, Director, if you could tell me a little bit more and thereby tell the ANC, tell me a little bit more about the operations there. Is it an independent contractor? What specific directions are they operating under? How secure are, you know, the facilities in terms of people who have tested positive? You say they're staying in their rooms. What is the arrangement for people leaving the facility with personal protective equipment? Could you just speak a little bit about what the operations are, what the instructions are? Is it an independent contractor, and who's monitoring it? I hope it's you, but so those are my questions. And I don't mean to jump in front of anybody else, but I've been waiting for answers to those questions. And you're there now, so to speak. So I'm going to take my opportunity.
Good evening, Councilmember Che. How are you?
I'm fine, Director. I hope you're fine too. And your baby, the Director has a new baby.
She's great, and she's with her mom and my son, and they're all doing very well. Thank you.
Okay.
Let me try to go down the list of questions. So I tried to answer in the opening. Let me just hit right out front. It is not an independent contractor that is running the facility. This is overseen by our Department of Human Services, who in this operation, they are actually the Human Services branch, which is underneath the operations section of which I run. So that operation does fall directly under me, as well as our health and medical branch, which falls up under the operations as well. So to your answer to the question is no, it is not an independent contractor, although we have the same contractor that does our medical surveillance and our medical assistance for all of our shelter staff and our Department of Corrections and all that Unity Health, that is our contractor on site for the medical side of this. So that's the answer to that one. I hope I answered that in enough detail for you, ma'am.
Yes, and you know, in terms of the operational instructions and so on, and you said, you know, there's medical staff and so on, and
so just trying to get the points off as we go.
Sure.
Okay. So second point about the personal protective equipment. Before Mark Seagraves did his piece, we had already had in place at every single one of our sites, and by the way, not just our hotel sites, but every site that we operate for vulnerable populations in the city. We have the procedures in place for how you don and doff, which is put on and take off, personal protective equipment in spaces like this. The majority of the staff that are working within the facility do not require more than gloves and a mask to work there. The staff that will actually go in and meet with the people in their rooms whether it be to do some welfare checks on them or deliver meals into the rooms if that's necessary for those that can't come and grab their meal. Those folks are required to wear a more stringent type of personal protective equipment. They will, in some cases, wear a gown to go in there. And that's particularly if they're doing some temperature checks or something like that. So, again, all of those staff with the understanding that once they are done seeing patients or seeing the people that are there, they're not patients, seeing the people that are there, they will doff their PPE before they go to other areas of the hotel, as we want to make sure that what we're doing there is stopping the spread of the disease, of the virus. So we have those procedures in place so that we don't do that even within a place where we're trying to get people to heal up or not get sick or get other people sick. So we do have those procedures in place. Again, all of that personal protective equipment and gloves and things that are being used in the facility are no different than any of the stuff that folks would use at home if they were taking care of a sick loved one with the virus. So we don't consider that medical waste. It's just like the rest of the waste that DPW picks up throughout the city, not knowing exactly where folks may be that are convalescing from the virus. So that is done. I think the next question you had, let me ask if I answered that one enough.
Yes, and I raised the issue about the gowns because of, and you mentioned this, the report, Mr. Seagraves' report, he reported that someone from Days Inn went over to Burger King in PPE, which included a gown.
Right, so that wasn't really a gown. That what that person was wearing, because I saw the video. What that person was wearing was a Tyvek suit, which is not actually what we issued. So a lot of folks that are working around right now that have to go to work and may potentially be exposed, like my trash collectors at DPW. Some of them have some of their own things they want to wear because it makes them feel better about it. It's not necessarily what we issue to them. And that, in that case, as I told Mr. Seagraves, was what that person was wearing. And since that time, we've gone back in. I have personally gone there and ensured that the staff understand that even if it's their own, they're not to wear personal protective equipment after they leave the facility to go anywhere outside of the facility. So
that issue's been resolved, in other words.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay, now I'm trying to think of the next one. I think the other question was why this facility was chosen.
Well, you know, I have to tell you, I'm also a law teacher, and sometimes the students will come back at me and they'll say, could you repeat the question? And I'll say, you know, I forgot what I asked. So you can, that was one question though. Why,
okay.
What are the criteria and why a particular spot like that where there's a lot of foot traffic and a lot of food stores and other commercial activity as opposed to something a little bit more, away from the main, the main path where people are traveling, because they get a little bit more, I don't mean truly remote, out in, Rock Creek Park or something like that, but something a little bit more remote. What are the criteria? In other words, you're running the operation, so you must have been told by somebody, find places, right, where folks can be quarantined. So did they say find places and then there was some specification, or just like go find places? I mean, I don't live so far from there. You didn't ask me about coming to my house.
So to answer your question, Councilmember, the criteria for choosing the sites were really just two things. The first one was, is it a site where we can ensure that people can convalesce and be taken care of? There's not. I should say there are some places in the city where that may not be the case. The second criteria that we had was we needed to find hotels or places like that where the owners and operators of those places were willing to help and were willing to take on this kind of operation in there. And I have to tell you that we are very lucky to have a partner like the Days Inn that is concerned about those people in the community that are vulnerable and need assistance. But there are not all of our hotel owners are like that. So we were able to find those folks that were able and willing to and wanting to work with us to take care of this vulnerable population, and we're very grateful to have that. But it's not necessarily the case across the city. So when we do choose the sites, we do make sure that we do the site assessment to say what are the things that we will need to put in place to ensure that if there is any risk to the community, we minimize that to the maximum extent. We will make sure that we do that. We'll continue to make sure we do that. And I actually look forward to working with you and the ANC when any issues come up around this, that we can rectify them immediately.
And that's excellent. And those are problems. I wish we had known ahead of time. It would have tamped down a lot of the anxiety that people were experiencing. But let me end on a positive note, and you can tell me who should be the point of contact. I have, since I put this information out on updates that I put out there, I have had, residents, and our residents are really quite wonderful in so many ways, but they've asked about making donations or maybe home cooked meals or clothing or maybe making masks or, they want to help. So who would I direct them to if they want to offer some help, or maybe that's not permissible? I don't know.
No, it is permissible, and thank you so much for bringing that up, because we do have a full section also underneath the operations section that deals with volunteers and donations.
Excuse me, Director, under the operations section, you mean, do we go to DPW? Where do we go?
No, I'm gonna give that to you right now.
Oh, okay.
What I would like to do, if it's okay with you, is I will send you the link and the phone number and email address to our volunteer and donations management folks, and you will have all of that. And I'll also send it to the ANC as well, so you all can push that. We have a partnership that's ongoing with a very well-known site where people can connect with each other. So if there's a person in need and a person that has, they can connect on there. There's a more deep dive one where people have certain things that they want to help donate to the city during this crisis, that they can do that as well. And there's also a place for folks, if they need certain things, can go to. So if it's okay with you, I'd like to send you all of those links.
Please do that. And, I do also, by bringing this up now, not only do I want to follow up on it, but I want you to understand that the reaction based upon that report that was on television was largely because people didn't know what was going on. But in general, I think you will find in anything that you do in Ward 3 that people are compassionate and they really want to help. So thank you. Send me that information. I will see that it's pushed out to people who have asked me about it.
Yes, ma'am. And I will ensure that as we go forward with all of the different types of things that we need to do around this crisis as it continues, that we get the message out. I think the council call that's happening, and I think getting more information out to the ANCs as we're doing things, so more and more people can be informed of what we're doing, is the exact right thing. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I'm sorry to the chair for going on at length, but I'm quitting. I'll quit.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Che. We do appreciate your presence here, and thank you very much for joining us. And I know this was a burning issue for you as well as for us all here, and so thank you. So with that, I know we all have lots of questions. So first, we're going to start with questions from my fellow commissioners, and I know Commissioner Furling-Heisen is just raring to go. So, Leah, I'm going to turn it over to you to let you start asking your questions.
Thank you, Monica. I have a question. I think this is more directed at DHS, but whomever may have the answer. I have 4 questions. One, is there an infection control officer overseeing the activities at the days in as required in the hospital or ambulatory surgery center?
Okay, sorry, I had to come off mute. So we do not have an individual infection control officer working at each of the sites that we're using for isolation and quarantine. They do that oversight for all of the operations that we're doing for the response to COVID-19 is done under the Health and Medical Branch, which is part of operations, which also this what we're talking about here is. As this is not considered a medical facility in any sense, we are not considering this a medical facility. This is a place where people that don't have a home to convalesce in or a place to isolate in, we are providing that for them. So we don't have that particularly for each site, but as we need it, we do have access to it through the operations itself.
Okay. Where are the patients getting their food from?
So we do have contracted services to bring food in, individual meals to be brought in, so that we don't have to do congregate feeding, because that would kind of go against everything we're trying to do there. So we do have contractors that bring in individual meals for all of the folks that we have in isolation.
Okay. And how are you protecting the cleaning staff? Like, did they get trained in some fashion before this became a quarantine hotel?
So the folks that we have there from the Department of Human Services and the folks that work at the hotel worked together to determine the best methods and methodologies for cleaning the room so that we have the least amount of exposure as we're doing the linen cleaning and all of that to the least amount of people as possible.
So this is training that was developed in-house, then that was shared with the hotel staff, is that correct?
So it was done together. We do it at each individual site because all the sites have a little bit different ways in which they do the cleaning of the areas. Primarily, it's the folks that work in the shelter staff communities that do that, supported by the folks from the hotel. So we try to, again, minimize as much of that as possible in going in the rooms and having to have any kind of exposures.
Okay. And then lastly, and then I have a follow-up question to something that you mentioned, which I was interested to hear a little bit more, but what type of disinfectants are being used there? Is it hospital-grade cleaning solutions? What's being used?
So we're using the same disinfectants that we use for all of our government facilities, everywhere that we have essential employees still working. So your bleach wipes, your bleach products, disinfectant sprays, all of that.
Okay, so not necessarily hospital grade, but what you have used at the government level.
The same thing that we would use to deep clean all the areas where we have everybody that is working in all the facilities for essential employees, yes.
Okay. Now, you mentioned something to Councilmember Che that I was interested in hearing a little bit more about, something along the lines of you've asked the people who are working on site, like the medical staff and I guess any other non-medical staff entering the site, to not wear the PPE that they were wearing on site as they depart the facility. Did I understand you correctly?
Yes.
Okay. How are you enforcing that?
So we have we have guards, let's call them guards, we have security staff, and staff at each of the facilities, at the entrances and exits for the facilities. There are different places within the facilities for the different areas that folks need to go into, where there are donning and doffing procedures that need to happen. So those are all have been trained, and those are what we are holding the people to. So there are several folks that will check before people walk out to ensure that we're not going out in PPE.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. So, Andrea?
Yeah, I have a question actually about this issue of it's not medical waste. And what you said was that it's the same as though, some individual in their house were caring for somebody that was either infected or ill or exposed. It's not exactly that, because it's however many people are in there. It's a lot of it. And so what would have to be different if you were to designate this medical waste, for instance? What kind of involved procedures would that entail? Because it's not exactly like one person in one house taking care of somebody. It's a lot of people and a lot of bed sheets and linens and things like that that were in contact with people that are at risk.
So let me just give numbers for a second, and I can't say exactly how many people in each facility, because as we put those together, there are folks that say there's HIPAA regulations and things like that, and I don't want to get into that conversation with them. But across all 5 of the facilities that we have, there are only 114 folks that at some point in time, and that's from the very beginning of this, in March through now, there have only been 114 people who were COVID positive in any one of those 5 locations. So of the total amount of people in there, that's actually not even the majority in each of the facilities. So there are more than potentially would be in somebody's house that would be positive at any given time. But I want to make sure folks aren't thinking that there is one complete facility full of COVID positive folks. That's not what it is. We have very many people who are in there in isolation, either awaiting on a test to see if they were positive, or were in the same area as somebody that was positive, or cannot go back to a place where somebody is positive. So not everybody inside the facility is, but I understand your question. I'm not belittling the question. The fact that there's more COVID virus in one place than there is at a home, I don't know that medically comes through, because I'm not a doctor and I don't even pretend to be one. But as we have gone through this with all of the medical professionals and the health department for the city, they are saying that the waste that comes out from these facilities is the same as the waste that would come out from a household where there may be COVID patients inside the household that are convalescing at home. So that's the answer that I have for that. It's not considered medical waste. It's really, honestly, the best answer I can give to you on that one. I've asked that question 6 ways to Sunday to make sure that we have the right answer, and the right answer is it's the same waste that would come out of a household that may have 2, 3, 4, 5 people inside there. Each individual piece of personal protective equipment may or may not have come in contact with somebody that has COVID, may have come in contact with 1 person or 3 people or 5 people, but it's still the same as would come out from somebody that would throw out a pair of gloves or a mask that they would wear at home for somebody that they were caring for that was convalescent.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Carolyn, do you have any questions?
Sorry, I'm on mute, but I do not have any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. David?
Yeah, I think I'm not trying to pile on, but this issue of the waste material, it seems like, I'm not sure what the consequence would be or the cost, but it seems like we want to err on the side of caution and treat it like medical waste and dispose of it that way rather than, again, I know you've said you've talked to folks in your staff. It's just, part of this, I think, as Commissioner Che mentioned, and again, I'm looking at the comments that are coming up while we're talking, and I guess my own reaction is that we really didn't know about this, and so if we're we understand the need for this, and we want to, again, as a city, as a ward, we care about those that are most vulnerable. But I think part of that wanting to help us is wanting to know what's going on. And so I think there is a bit of a, we're reacting because we haven't known about this. But again, getting back to this waste issue, it seems that it's, why wouldn't we want to be on the side of caution and treat it as medical waste and kind of as a way of practice to help us. There's a lot of fears around this, and so that's, I guess maybe it's more of a desire or request than a question. The second one is, again, you talked about you've got medical staff on site, and imagine there are people there that are positive, and what happens when their condition gets worse? Who makes that call to go from the days in to a hospital? Let's talk a little bit more about that, if you could.
Sure, and this is the reason why we've put some medical staff in there, staff with medical experience in there. Throughout the time that folks are there, we do have a doctor that is there. We have 5 registered nurses that are there and a medical assistant, and that they are there particularly because some of the folks from that vulnerable community may have some of the additional health concerns that would add to the comorbidity of the disease. So we ensure that we have staff there that can be there in case of that emergency where somebody, and I'm going to use a medical term because people have been saying it over and over to me for the last month, we have somebody that decompensates. If you're asking what that was, I had to look it up myself. But they start to get really bad or worse condition. That's the purpose for them being there, so they can assess that and they can say, the medications that you could get from an over-the-counter type of place, we can have those here, help you get through that time, or no, this is a condition where we need to move you to more acute type of care, like a hospital, where they can do what's necessary for the person. So we have the medical staff there for that instance alone, and to make sure that we're taking care of folks that may, as they say in the medical parlance, decompensate.
And again, I keep seeing the comments about this idea of if it's medical waste, it doesn't really matter where it comes from, it's still medical waste. And so I think I'll just speak for myself, but I think there is an interest in really erring on the side of caution, treating this as medical waste and disposing it and taking care of it. So, and the last question I have is really, and I'm not sure you can answer this, but I'm going to try anyways, is that, what is the game plan going forward? Is there, I know there's a lot of unknowns, but is this going to be housing folks indefinitely, or is there after a 3-6 month time there's a review period to evaluate how this has worked at this site? Help us understand what the 3, 6, 9, 1 year plan is for this particular facility, if you know it.
Sure. So I think we all hope that none of this goes on for that period of time. The goal here was to provide the place for people in the city that don't have a home to convalesce in and that don't have the means in which to do that or can't do that within their own home, have a place to do that. So our hope is that as through the rest of the city, we see we reach the top of our cases here, start to level out and come down. We see the same thing in the need for facilities like this. We put it in place to do that and to help us in the city take care of those that have that need. I would imagine as it comes down, as the virus subsides here and we all do the things that we're doing, which is isolate and quarantine when necessary, and continue to do the stay at home. We've done a really good job in the city at flattening that curve, and the hope is that as that happens, this will continue to happen in this setting as well. We will reevaluate. I don't know what time that will be when we reevaluate. We have to see the cases start to come down, which we're not seeing yet across the city and in this population. If there is a time when we see it coming down across the city and we start to do some reopening of the city, that's a time when we need to reevaluate how these operations are going and what's our continued need for it, and is there a different way in which we can do it at that point. But for right now, I can't tell you when that is.
Okay. Well, it looks like we'll be having updates as this progresses. I appreciate you being here, so thanks for coming out tonight.
Yes, sir, and I will commit to the ANC that is, as long as this is going on and your meeting, if you have questions, I'll be glad to be.
Thank you. Naomi, you have any questions?
Thank you. Thanks, Dr. Gelhardt. I just wanted to ask a question about, we talked a bit about the staff and who are there, and you've talked about the different reasons that people may be housed in the hotel, but so some people are ill, some people are not, and some people have an ill family member or another situation that can't return to their house that you discussed. What is the protocol for individuals when they arrive? Are they assigned a room and that's where they're supposed to stay for a fixed period of time? And what is the time? Is there any coming and going? How do people arrive? What happens once they arrive? How do they depart?
Sure. So when folks get referred to one of the isolation and quarantine sites, there's an in-processing process that happens for them when they get there. We try to, as best we can, separate the populations. So if we have the availability to do floors or sides of buildings and things like that, we try to do that between those being just isolated because they were either in the proximity of folks that were symptomatic and then shown to be positive. So we try to do that separation throughout the facility. And then if they are a person that was not symptomatic coming in and they're just there for isolation, then those folks are on a 14-day isolation period. But what we're able to do, and we're going to start doing this, and you heard it here first, I guess, to say it that way, we are getting increased amounts of testing capability in the city. And some of that rapid testing capability we are going to be putting into play in our more vulnerable population areas, like the nursing homes, in places like the isolation and quarantine sites, so that after a period of time, because this is working with medical folks again, and please don't test me on my medical knowledge, there's an incubation period that's pretty substantiated so far for this. And what we're going to try to do is to do the rapid testing for those not only that have just come in symptomatic to tell whether they are or not positive right away when they get there, but then also for those that are in in quarantine. We want to make sure that if they're not symptomatic, that we can test them after about 4 or 5 days. And if they do not come up positive, we're able to allow them to leave that facility. So we're getting to that point. We're not quite there yet. I think that's within the next week or so, we should be able to effectuate that. But that's generally our processes. I hope I answered your question.
And once someone arrives and is checked out and assigned a room, they're in that room 24 hours a day until either 14 days go by or under the new testing protocol, they're cleared?
that is what is supposed to happen. In some cases, we try to allow, if the facility has a balcony in front of their place or a back balcony off the backside, they are allowed to go out onto that. But again, the purpose of the facility and the reasons why they're there is to be in isolation and quarantine. And I got to tell you, my daughter was on work travel and about now a month ago and was diagnosed positive and was stuck in a hotel room for 10 days where she was. And that's tough. But that's what we're requiring of folks. And that's unfortunately where we are right now.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. So I've got some questions, some follow-up. The chat room has a bunch of questions, so I'm going to try to get through the questions that people have asked, and then I'll turn it over to the floor for some additional questions. But what is the capacity at the Days Inn? Just out of curiosity, I know in any given time frame, the capacity itself, the number of people there at the facility is going to vary. But what is the actual capacity itself, and what is it capable? How many people are capable of being there? So what is the maximum number that could potentially be there at any given time?
Chris, I can answer that question. The hotel has 155 guest rooms.
Okay, and from that end, to answer your question on capacity, some of those rooms we've asked to use for the staff and some other things that we need to use some rooms for. So it's a little bit below that of what the total capacity of people we could put into the hotel.
Okay, thank you. And okay, let's see. So let me just quickly start looking through some of these questions. So one of the questions that has come up, when people are, well, there seems to often be a heavy police or fire department presence in front of the Days Inn. And we're just curious as to the volume of vehicles there. Like, what exactly is going on when we see quite that number? It seems like they're what's going on? I mean, it seems a little excessive. Or
sure.
What's the protocol there, or what's going on, or can you just?
Sure. I was actually scanning the comments as people were typing in as well, and I saw the one of about 4 police cars out there tonight. I can find out for you guys why. I'm not sure why there were 4 police cars out there, whether it had anything to do with the Days Inn or not. So I can take a look into that. As far as the ambulance presence, there are calls for service there for the hotel. Some of them COVID related, probably a majority of them if the ambulance does show, but some not. Some of the folks that, like I said, some of the folks that are in there have other medical issues, which is some of the reason why some of them may be there in isolation. So, that's another reason why an ambulance would be there. But, we make sure that we have good contact with the medical care providers so that we can, along with FEMS, Fire and Emergency Medical Services, so that if the need is there, we're able to quickly move folks if they become worse or they have another medical condition that may present. So.
Okay, thank you. So there's been some concerns about people congregating in the area, and questions have, as you've been scanning through the chats then, I know people are in isolation, they're not supposed to leave when they're in the rooms, but have people been leaving? Have people gone out? Are they actually confined to their rooms? Are they actually really forced to stay there, or how strict is that? Are people actually able to walk out that front door of the hotel and walk over to Bread First, or simply walk across the street?
So we've had several, from the very beginning, we've had several conversations about the ability for us to do the isolation and quarantine. Again, you know, I keep stressing, and I'm gonna just say it again. These are folks that if they had another place where they could be, a home or an apartment or something like that, that's where they would be doing their convalescence or doing their isolation, but they don't. So the question comes up frequently. It come up frequently in the beginning. How do we enforce folks to stay in the isolation and quarantine? That's the reason why we have some of the security that we do there, so that we can ensure that folks are not going out and endangering other people or themselves, for that matter. So we try to adhere the strictest as possible to keep people in. If somebody is just completely non-compliant and they won't stay in isolation or quarantine, then we have to remove them from the facility because that's not the appropriate facility for them to be in. And then we have a couple other options, what we can do with them, none of which we really want to do. And unfortunately, we may have had the police officers there today. I don't want to say that that's what it was because I don't know. But that's the kind of the worst option for everybody, but it is an option if folks won't comply. So all of them sign an agreement going into there that they are in isolation and quarantine and must stay in their rooms or on their balconies immediately in front of or behind their rooms. And so that's the requirement that we have.
Okay, so at this time, if we see a large group, it's probably not people from Days Inn, or at least it might be staff, but certainly not people who are actually residents.
There will not be a large gathering of residents in front of there.
Okay.
And if you see that, you have that question, please reach out. And Commissioner, if you don't have my information, I'll share it here with you so that you can reach out to me directly, and we'll make sure for you that that's not the case.
Okay, thank you. How long is the contract with Days Inn? So for how long have you contracted out for Days Inn to be used as a facility?
I'm going to let the Days Inn folks answer that. If they choose to. That's a contractual arrangement with them, and much like, you know, I know people don't like the fact that we didn't announce that we were doing it there. There are some reasons that are good for that I understand people in the community would not like, but I'm just being honest. So if our friends from the Days Inn want to cover that, they can. But I think we've entered into that knowing that we have to take care of folks, and we're going to try to do that as long as it's necessary.
Thank you.
Hey, Monica, it's Jamie Hauser with the Days Inn. We have contracted with the DHS for 90 days, and we hope and pray that it ends at that point for everybody involved and for the residents of the district, as does everybody on this WebEx. However, we did leave an open end with DHS because we want to do the right thing for the people in the community, that in the event that this does continue, that we would be willing to help them as long as it takes.
And when did the contract start? How long has this been going out?
April 10th is when we started with it.
Okay. Just doing a quick scan. I'll tell you what. I'm just going to open up the line and going quite long. I'll give 5-minute limit. But I'm going to open it up for any questions that I may have missed. If anyone has any follow-up questions, I'm just going to let people ask questions. And we'll give it 5 minutes for the public to ask questions and additional questions. Then we're going to have to move on with the agenda.
Monica, there's a whole set of questions about why the secrecy around the locations? Why was this not disclosed as public funding? The director could address those questions, I'd appreciate it.
It actually helps when you're talking to take yourself off of mute. So I think we're all getting used to the WebEx, right?
Yeah.
So why were all the sites not announced to the public? I will agree with what was said earlier by the council member, which was relayed to her by the city administrator. A lot of this came on really fast as we were all, trying to get our arms around all of the breadth of what was going on with the virus and how the rapid spread that we were seeing. So some of that, and I won't use that as an excuse, but some of that was very quick in happening. The other reason is, these are patients, these are people that are convalescing. And in doing that, there are a whole lot of concerns that come about with privacy and all of that. And I'm not saying that that's a great reason for those that are in the community where that's happening either. Those are other considerations that were there as well. So those were a couple of the thought processes early on. And then quite frankly, we've been just really ramping it all up to the scale of what we are seeing that we need. There is a large population that these centers need to service out there across the city. There's a lot of the different vulnerable populations. I mean, early on, we had probably 60 people in different centers that were from out of state, from out of the district. Love to say it's a state, but from out of the district that just couldn't go home and couldn't leave for different reasons. They couldn't go back to where they came from. They couldn't fly because they were positive and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of it came real quick. A lot of it was concerns about those that needed to stay there and ensuring their privacy was upheld. So several reasons for that, why early on in the early stages and still early stages where we are, that the individual sites hadn't been announced. I don't want to portray, though, that as being the right answer at the end of the day.
Have the other
Thank you. I
locations been
appreciate your
disclosed?
candidness.
I'm sorry, ma'am, your question?
Have the other 4 locations been disclosed?
I believe that's not quite certain if they've completed the list to be disclosed yet or not. I can check on that for you, though.
Any other questions from the public at this point?
So I know we're on the discussion of the isolation and quarantine sites, but I'd love to hear anybody's feedback on how we're doing with the trash and keeping the city clean. My day job.
I think everyone's just focused right now on.
You're doing great, Director.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're doing great, Director.
If I could take a second to put a plug, since there's no questions really coming right now. The dedication of your city employees during this time when their families are being affected, as well as everybody else's families, has humbled me greatly in working with them at the Department of Public Works. They're motivated to come to work. I did a recycling route with one of my crews last week, early in the morning, and seeing the children that are out there waving and the folks that have come out to tell them thank you, because they add a sense of normalcy to a lot of things that are going on is really humbling, and we appreciate that. And I appreciate those folks from DPW that are getting out there and doing that every day.
And Director, I want to thank you for coming, Jamie. I want to thank you as well. and certainly Councilmember Shea for coming and being a part of this presentation. I know Director, we put you in the hot seat tonight, and thank you for stepping up. And so I think that is really all we've got on the topic for tonight. So we're going to move on with the rest of the agenda now. And thank you very much. And if we have any further questions, you can certainly expect emails from us, or I may give you a call at some point. But thank you very much.
Okay,
Thank you, Monica.
In the chat. So if anybody needs my email address, it's on there. Please, if you see something out there going on at the days and it doesn't seem right, please email me. I will get back to you on it and we can check into it. So thank you very much. And thank you to the commissioners that are on, and especially to our council member who is on for all that you all are doing while we're going through this as well.
Okay, and
I just want to echo the final comment, which was thank you for your openness and transparency on the call. Really appreciated.
Anytime.
okay, can I go back to a minor thing? I said that I would give you this contact for whoever is on that committee about roads and whatever, about seeking road closures. That would be vision.0 at dc.gov, vision.0 at dc.gov, and they are right now evaluating various places that they would consider for creating bike and pedestrian pathways.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so can I get off, or do you want me to stay, or what would you like me to do?
You are free to go and enjoy the rest of your evening. You're welcome to stay. We have Captain Burnett from the 2nd District who's going to be speaking next if you want to hear what he has to say. But
well, that's so exciting, but since you invited me to depart, I think I'll do that, okay? If anybody wants me for anything, I'm very easy to get, okay?
thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Shea.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Have a good night. And with that, Captain Burnett.
How y'all doing today? Can you all hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so I have great news report for us as the 2nd District. Far as crime-wise as a whole, the 2nd District for year-to-date, we're down 7%. And the last 30 days, the 2nd District is down 63% crime-wise in all categories, combined together. Now I have Sector 1, and specifically 203 is the area where the ANC is at. And what we're looking at right now for the ANC for the 30-day comparison from the last 30 days, we're looking at a 51% reduction in crime. And so all in all, with the social distancing, people staying at home and the business being closed, crime is in the 2nd District is down all across the board here in the city, which is good. A couple of things I'd like to point out, is not just strictly in Sector 1 and 203, but pretty much district-wide. We still are having a little bit of issue with theft from autos, although they're drastically down in stolen autos. The stolen auto problem we having, a lot of the calls that we're getting, it's turning out that we're having residents that are leaving the keys inside the car. So if we can get that message out there, even though your car's parked at your residence and you're inside, leaving the keys in the car. If they see the keys or they happen to get in the car and they find the keys, they're taking off with the car. So please bring your keys inside the house with that. Okay, so I don't really have much more to add as far as crime-wise there. If you want me to go into a little bit about the mayor's order about the restrictions and stuff and what the police department's doing, I can do that.
Please. Yes, please.
Okay. All right. So as you know, the mayor's order that went out earlier in the month, in the police department, we get from the chief updates in the on the mayor's order and on how enforcement and everything. First thing I want to say is Metropolitan Police Department, we're still here, we're still operating at full capacity. Men and women Metropolitan Police Department have a lot of experience in this type of situations. We on a regular basis go on calls for service, and we have to implement universal precautions with dealing with some residents throughout the community. So we're well trained on how to, keep ourselves protected, and keep the men and women on the department, healthy as possible, But that being said, we do have taken some precautions, and changed how we respond. It doesn't change the type of services you're getting from Metro Police Department. We're still a full-service police department, but some of the calls that we get, we're diverting to our telephone reporting unit. That's to limit the exposure of the residents to our officers, as well as the officers to the residents unnecessarily. So you may call for us. You may get a call back and say, hey, we're going to take your report over the phone. I just want everybody to understand, though, if it is a crime in progress, regardless of the type of crime in progress, we have suspects on the scene. The men and women of the 2nd District, we are responding, and we will deal with it how we have to deal with it. Earlier, I think you all were talking about Connecticut Avenue, the Days Inn. There was a call earlier today about 6 o'clock with the police cars there. If that's the call you're talking about, we had several units respond there. There was a disorderly person there that was refusing to leave the hotel, and officers responded to deal with that. And it looks like from the notes, it looks like they may have left if they put the notes in right prior to the officers getting there. But we'll respond to any type things happen. And because we have a lot of officers out on the street, you're probably going to get more officers than usual. Definitely down here in the 2nd District. Now, enforcement. Let me first go into a little bit about what the mayor's order says, about what citizens, can do and everything. The mayor's order, the mayor's asked that we implement social distancing, okay? Where it doesn't apply with people of your own household and your family members. So if you're going out and you're walking around and you're close by, that's fine. If you're with strangers, people you don't know, then we ask that you keep the distancing, okay? Mask and gloves, even though that it's not a priority and a mandate that you have masks and gloves out in public, we are asking people, that in the mayor's asking that people wear masks and gloves out in public to prevent the transmission from that person to other people. One thing the police department here is whenever we see a violation of the mayor's directive, what we're seeking is voluntary compliance, from the citizens. So we're going to take every step possible to get that voluntary compliance from the residents. We'll talk to them. We'll explain what some of the consequences, if they can insist upon it, there is violation of the law, violation of DC code that we can pursue. We'll go the route first, with issuing a citation. If that still doesn't get compliance, the last resort is do arrest. We're trying to limit the amount of people that we take into custody because we don't want to bring people that may be carriers into the jail system unnecessarily and do unnecessary exposure and stuff. But rest assured that if we have to go that route, Metropolitan Police Department is well prepared, and we do have procedures and policy in place to do that if we have to do so. But that is not our first resort. It's actually a last resort. And for the most part, our officers out there, I've been out there and we talk to people. People are very friendly out here in the 2nd District, and they do what we ask, and we don't have any issues, and a lot of times it is because they just forget. You get caught up in the moment, you get close, and then we give the warning and stuff in reference to that. Our officers definitely have policies, out there. I'm not really going to go into into travel requirements. The residents, the mayor order is out there. I will talk about a couple of things that we've gotten calls for. We do get calls for people on skateboards. We do get people out there jogging. We do get calls for people out there doing running, walking dogs and stuff. Those are all things that are allowed under the mayor's order. And a lot of times, if it is allowed in the mayor's order and if it's not a crime involved, we probably will not respond to that because we're trying to keep the social distancing with our officers and stuff. But I just want to put it out there, those activities, that people are doing to get out of the house. I personally kind of encourage people to get out of the house, keep your social distancing and everything. because being typed up in your house for a long period of time, and everything, we don't want domestics, to start going up. People do start getting irritated with each other, being isolated. It's just not natural for us, for human beings to be isolated and confined and stuff like that. And it does sometimes have tinny nerves. So if you can get out, if the weather's nice, keep your distances out there, get some exercise and stuff like that. We'll continue to get the calls and we'll address them as they see fit and stuff. Stores are asking residents to wear masks to go into the stores, okay? They cannot force you to wear a mask. However, they can ask you not to enter the store, and they can ask you to leave the store if you are not wearing a mask. That would not be a violation of the mayor's order. What happens is if they ask you to leave, it is a private business and they own it. And if they're lawful agent, they can ask people to leave. If you refuse to leave, then you fall under criminal statute called unlawful entry. We're not asking security guards to go hands-on with anybody in there. We're asking them to call the Metropolitan Police Department, and then we'll talk to the people. And usually 99.99% of the time we get voluntary compliance and people leave, but they would be subject to arrest under an unlawful entry statute, for failing to leave a premises and everything like that. Violations of the mayor's order for commercial establishments, the Metropolitan Police Department is not shutting businesses down. We will respond, we will investigate, and we will file a report with, we will do an incident-based report documenting all the information. That information will be turned over to DC Regulatory Affairs or ABC, whatever agency is appropriate, and they will follow up with the proper civil infraction or civil fine that is necessary, and they have the authority to shut the business down. The only time it would fall in play with the Metropolitan Police Department to do something like that is if the action of the business resulted in a serious violent crime, and the continued operation of that business can contribute to more violent crime, then the chief of police can step in and actually shut that business down until a hearing is convened, and it would still be turned over. And more likely that's with ABC establishments, and we don't have any of those open right now. So it's not something that's really on our radar that we have to worry about. So that pretty much is in a nutshell, what we're doing as police department. I just want to reiterate, that we are out there. We're out there to help. The officers are out there in force. All our officers are coming to work. They're out there and they're eager to help everybody out there, and we're just taking the necessary precautions to keep ourselves safe as well as keep the residents safe also. So, that's all I have as far as for the police department.
Thank you. Just to clarify one comment you made about masks in stores. I believe the mayor's order requires that if you're going into an establishment with food, so a supermarket or 7-Eleven, that you are required to wear a mask. Is that correct?
I'm looking at the latest directive that we got from the chief. Individuals who choose to wear masks and face covering must still abide by social distancing requirements. Wearing masks and face coverings by public remains optional with the exception of individuals who are using taxi, ride-sharing vehicles, or other private transportation providers. Food sellers, employees of hotels, taxis, ride-sharing companies, and other private transportation must wear gloves and cloth or surgical masks. It doesn't really specify as far as citizens going in there, but okay. I'm with everybody else that, and I will look into it. If you give me a moment, I think I have a copy of the latest mayor's order, and I can thumb right through it. But if there's any questions like that, we can pull that policy up, and an official would respond out there and make any type of final decisions and stuff. But I would encourage everybody to actually wear a mask when they're going into food establishments and stuff, because the purpose of the mask is, if you happen to be a carrier and not know it, is prevent you from transmitting something to the food, to the surface, or to somebody else.
Of course.
I have a question as well.
Please, Andrea.
So, Captain Bernat, I want to ask you about policy with MPD as regards traffic stops, because I have seen close up, actually, 2 or 3, and so it's anecdotal. but a traffic stop where a policeman without a mask is approaching much closer than 6 feet to the window of somebody who was stopped for a violation. In addition to that, I've seen handing back and forth of driver's licenses and the ticket and the paper with the ticket itself without wearing gloves. I don't think that that's safe either for the officer or for the residents. In particular, if the officer is doing lots of traffic stops and he could pick something up from one person and spread it around to the others. Can I ask you about the policy about the gloves and the masks related to traffic stops and the handing over of the ticket or the violation or the license or things like that?
Okay, the policy of the police department from the chief is whenever practical, members shall wear surgical masks when responding to calls for service or initiating police actions. You know, we have definitely at certain locations that we have to do, you know, nursing homes, food facilities, Department of Youth and Rehabilitation Services, Department of Corrections, and community residential facilities where individuals with physical or intellectual disabilities. So those places that it's a requirement to wear a mask whenever practical. So sometimes, and I'm going to get to your thing with the traffic stops, okay? So sometimes when we respond, you know, an emergency, officer might have to respond and may not be able to don that right away. Obviously not, sometimes they don't wear it all the time in the car, or officers are out there on the street for 10 hours a day, you know, and sometimes they need a break from that and everything. But now with traffic stops, we have electronic ticket writers, okay, that are capable, that we use to initiate tickets and stuff, okay? They come on a roll, the printer prints out the stuff. Department, all officers have cell phones that are issued by the agency that does all the ticket electronically. So it is possible, and we encourage officers to use electronic ticketing services that are available to them, where the owner, the driver can actually just hold the driver's license, and then we can actually scan the barcode, and it will populate everything else into the computer, okay? So we can actually initiate in that stop where there actually is no contact with the driver's license and stuff. And I'll get with my officials, you know, make sure that our 2D officers are actually trying to use that facility as much as possible. Now, when it comes to issuing the tickets, we actually have to hand that ticket to it. And our officers, and I would agree with, they should be wearing gloves and they should be wearing a mask when we're having that close contact and interaction and everything. And that's something I need to go back to my people. You know, if you're seeing that happen, then, you know, I would encourage people, you know, make a phone call. You can make phone calls to the 2nd District Watch Commander, use the Watch Commander phone, or call the 2nd District yourself, or just call 911 and ask the dispatcher to have a supervisor give you a call, and they will give them the number and we'll give you a call, and then you can express that concern, you know, and then we can address it right away. Now, as far as traffic stops, there's not a whole lot of traffic out there right now, okay? And the instruction, you know, here, I'm a captain at 2nd District, and I've advised my officers and stuff, is that if you see residents out there, we have a policy under the NEAR Act that we have to issue either a violation or a paper warning violation to the driver of motor vehicle when we make that stop, okay? There are rare instances when we make a traffic stop that we can give a verbal warning, and that would be the officers on the traffic stop, a dire emergency takes place, we need units to respond, the officer would give back a license and stuff, be careful, drive, I have to go, they get in the car, and they would go. All of this is recorded on their body-worn camera and stuff, okay? That being said, I'm encouraging my officers, unless that traffic violation is very blatant and it causes a heavy risk, to not conduct that traffic violation and everything, you know. You don't hear that from the police department and stuff, but we are trying to keep our residents safe, and we're trying to keep our officers safe. So it could be something, activate your lights, pull up beside them and say, hey, you kind of roll through that stop lane, they make a stop, you didn't use your blinker, you turned from the wrong lane or something like that. We can tell them, you know, and everything, please be more careful and stuff, and that interaction can take from inside the officer's vehicle to the residents outside there, and the officer can activate the BWC, and we record that interaction, on their body-worn camera and stuff, and usually we get, hey, I'm sorry, I didn't realize what I was doing, because we have been seeing all people driving a little bit faster than normal, because the roads are open. And now that being said, too, we do have traffic officers out there on a regular basis working out of special operations that are actually doing traffic violations on the highway and the freeway, stuff, and they're using that ticket writing machine, to issue those citations and stuff. So
Are you telling me that there is no direct policy in place that says that if an officer needs to speak to a driver of a vehicle, that they have to wear a mask or stay 6 feet back?
I'm telling you, the policy of Metropolitan Police Department, whenever it's practical, the officer should be wearing a mask and wearing gloves to interact with the citizen. Yes, that's what I'm telling you. That is our policy, whenever practical. Okay? We can't make it a blanket policy, because if emergency rises up, we can't have officers putting on masks and putting on gloves before they stop somebody from getting assaulted. So. But
sorry, I'm asking about traffic stops specifically.
When a traffic stop, well, that falls under the policy right there. Whenever practical, members shall wear surgical masks when responding for calls or interacting with the public. Surgical masks and gloves. Okay, that is the policy. Whenever it's practical, yes. So that was what I'm saying. So if you see that and it's not happening, let us know, and then we will address it with our officers.
I have a question regarding enforcement on closed playgrounds and local parks. When the weather is nice, understandably people want to be out. And I have seen children and families in the Forest Hills playground as well as the baseball field on several occasions in the last 2 weeks, especially when the weather is nice. Is there a steady, I don't know if you want to call it patrolling of the area to make sure that people are being socially distant? And if the playground says, on both entrances of the playground, there are big signs that says it's closed, and there are people in the playground, how do you enforce, the people who are violating that signage?
Well, I mean, if the playground is closed, and these are all playgrounds by DC Department of Parks and Recs, so a lot of them up in the second district, a lot of them, have fences around them. They're padlocked, and so I haven't seen riding around seeing many violations with people violating those playgrounds. Now the playgrounds that are open that people can access from the street, from the sidewalks and stuff, there are people on there. Obviously, we don't want people interacting on the playgrounds, because you're playing on the playground and you're contagious, you leave, somebody else gets on it, they get what you had, because that's how it's spread. It's spread by contacting the service or contacting an individual. So our officers are out there. We asking our officers, to remind people, not to use these facilities and ask them to leave, And for the most part, we get voluntary compliance, And I understand people they want to go out to use these parks and they want to use these facilities with their kids and stuff, but it's not safe for them to do so right now. So, I mean, that's where it goes as far as the enforcement and everything. We're seeking voluntary compliance first, and if we don't get the voluntary compliance, then we usually express what the consequences are, and once we make clear what the consequences we're not violating, we usually get the voluntary compliance, and everything is fine. If you see people out there doing it, you can always call 911. The call service will come up, and one of our officers will respond there. We'll check it out, and if it's a violation of the mayor's order, and they're not supposed to be out there, we will definitely address it, and ask the people to leave, to keep the parks clear and stuff. So.
Well, I mean, I certainly don't want to call 911 and tie up the emergency services line when there are real emergencies happening all over the city. But I just do think it should be on your radar that Forest Hills. Yeah, Forest Hills really is. On nice days, I think people are tempted to spend time there, and I think it's an area that should be maybe patrolled a little bit more frequently.
Right. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any more questions from commissioners? Yeah. I noticed that, yeah. So, okay, then, thank you, Captain Burnett. We appreciate it, and we're gonna move on.
All right, thank you. Have a good night.
And so normally, we would have a community forum coming up next. I'm not sure if really it's even practical under this circumstance. Is there any burning community issue that someone in the public would bring up at this point? Okay, let's just move on. I think it's best given the time. So let's move on to Burgercade. So Mark, are you out there?
I am. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear. Welcome.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for having us tonight. Good evening, commissioners. And a couple of months ago, as you recall, we met with the ANC to talk about renovations, interior and exterior, for the Burger King on Connecticut Avenue. At that time, we delivered to you plans, elevations, and renderings of what the outside of the building was going to look like from all four sides. At that time, a few of the commissioners had some questions in regard to the drive path and the pedestrian crossing, as well as some ADA issues that are currently on the site. So invited with me tonight are the architect and the engineer from Smith Engineering. We have Mr. Smith himself, if he'd like to go ahead and talk about some of the improvements that his team has discussed.
Yes, thank you, Mark. And hello, everyone. We have been working on this with the architect and.
Excuse me, who's speaking?
Oh, I'm sorry. This is Blake Smith with Smith Engineering.
Thank you very much.
Yes, and the architect has put together a rendering that I'll share with you here if I can figure out how to share my screen, which I might not be able to do because I am new at this as well. And okay, I'm not sure I'm being successful in this, but the things that we've been discussing, I know that one concern that came up last time was that the sidewalks that cross the drives for the Burger King and the adjacent parcels, what we are planning on doing now is putting some sort of a brick paver across or stamped concrete across those drive aisles, so that it'll be a cue to the pedestrians as they're walking, if they're walking and looking at their phone or whatnot, and they see that paving, then they'll hopefully look up and understand that they're going to be crossing a driveway. So, that is one thing that we're planning on doing. On the front, of course, there's going to be this a bit of a patio area, but we are still providing a ramp to provide handicap access to the front door, as well as handicap access to the side door from the handicap space that's located behind the building. Robert Zappula with ADA Architects, I believe, is on this call as well. If he has more luck sharing his screen, that would indicate the 3D rendering so that people can see. I invite him to go ahead and try to share that as well. I'm not having very much success here.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Hello?
I can.
Hi, it's Robert Zapula with AKA Studio. I'm clicking the share button and it's not letting me share anything.
Okay.
So I'm not sure. Oh, wait. It just popped up something. I hit share.
There we go. It's coming up.
You see a site plan? Or
Yes, we do.
Oh, good.
Starting
So,
to-
hey, Blake, this is your drawing. Do you want to start with this, and then we'll get into the rendering, or?
Yeah, that's fine. If you wouldn't mind, Robert, zooming in at the entryway there, that's perfect. Yeah, so on the top part of the drawing there, you see kind of a hatched area that shows the proposed concrete pavers across that top drive there. And as well on the bottom drive, we're providing those as well. And then for the front entryway, we have the handicap ramp going up into the building. Yeah, and that's the patio area with the ramp going into the building. And then on the side, we'll have a ramp, coming up from the handicap parking space up the side of the building into the side entrance.
So that would kind of overlay with this architectural drawing. Might be easier to see. This is your ramp off the sidewalk, front patio, main existing entrance. It's a split level, so you would enter in the middle, go up the stairs to the kitchen level or the dining level, where the order counter is in the queue. This is the ramp off the side. So Blake will be putting pavers across the driveway here. Is that right, Blake?
That's right, yeah.
And then this would be your ramp up the front to where that front patio is, and that's your front entrance. That's existing. And the other far side is the exit from after you go through the drive-through. And this over here is your ramp in the back and steps up to that main level, which would be the queue line and the ordering counter.
Actually, I think we're looking at a floor plan right now. At least I'm seeing a floor plan at the first level.
Oh, I'm looking at a rendering.
I'm looking at a street view.
Does someone see a rendering? Like a...
I'm seeing a street view. All of a sudden now I'm seeing...
I see it.
Okay, so that's a rendering. Yeah.
The
So you
rendering.
see the Burger King with the sign and everything?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's still
Car
home
wash.
of the Whopper.
Excuse me?
It's still home of the Whopper.
It is still home with a Whopper.
I see what's going on. I think it's just updating slowly for me. That's what's going on.
Oh.
So I think I'm a little bit behind just because it's painting slower for me. So never mind.
So what else, Blake, you want to talk about?
Well, I think if there's really just any questions that we could answer, I'm not sure there's a lot more to touch on unless there's some questions.
So my question would be, what's your time frame? Or, I mean, obviously, it's great that you're making this investment, that you're moving forward, given all the difficulties. I know a lot of businesses are rethinking that, so we're glad to see that you're committed to moving forward. What is your time frame?
Well, I know that. Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, this is Mark James with Burger King, Monica, ma'am. We're looking to, with your blessing, and hopefully we can get an answer tonight to get into the stages of permitting, the permitting process for this location. But we're on board to get this project started right away, obviously with your blessing.
Okay.
Hi, Monica. This is Gloria from Van Ness Main Street. Thank you so much for doing this. I just have some comments.
Can you hold up for a second, Gloria? I want to make sure
Sure.
give the other commissioners a chance.
Oh, sorry, Monica. Okay.
Sure. Andrea?
Yeah, I have a question. I do. Exactly what permits are you guys needing and are asking for our support for?
Blake, I know you didn't have the answer to this question earlier when we spoke. We have to have the commissioner's blessing to, I guess this is if I'm understanding correctly, this is the point that Chick-fil-A got stuck when they tried to remodel their restaurant with the double drive-through. before they were even allowed to go through the permitting process.
Yeah, so, we will get the typical types of permits, the building permits that we will need and any sort of land development permits that we will need. We could certainly get back to you if you need more specific verbiage than that.
Yeah, we do. Zoning variances, public space permits, what are we talking about here? We got to know what that is before we're going to say whether we're going to support it or not.
I don't think we're looking for any variances. We have the parking in the back, which has always been fine. I don't think, and I may be incorrect, but I don't think we're applying for any variances for the location.
Okay, but
not on the site side. We're not. Robert?
No, I'm not aware of any. No. What I'm doing to the buildings, we're just remodeling what's there. So we're not changing the structure. The tower is a little bit different, but it's the same footprint. So it's not going to be that different. We're not increasing the heights. We're kind of going to the same heights that were there before. And we're just replacing the materials and the finishes in the same location.
So then it's only public
Apologize if I
space?
missed this. Is there a drive-through or a single drive-through or no drive-through?
Single drive-through. The entrance is on the right side here that's closest to us.
And where's the window for the
On
order
the
you
other
pick
side,
up?
you wrap around the
Oh,
back.
okay. Is there a drive-through now? I can't remember.
Yes.
Okay. So you're not changing using up any more public space for a driveway or drive-through?
We're not touching any of the driveways or not. The drive-throughs are existing. We're leaving the drive-through. We're just refinishing the building and adding an ADA ramp at the front because it doesn't have it right now. It's just that long sloping sidewalk.
Though I think potentially for that ramp and steps for the front, I think you're going to need some public space permits there. Right now, you're just into the street level, is my recollection. So you're probably going to need something there. And if you're going to be putting down the pavers across the driveway, and that's public space, you're probably going to need some permitting there that would, some DDOT that would also affect the public space. Those are some things that we probably come to us with. You have to research that exactly what you need there.
Yeah, I seem to remember something about the width of the driveway isn't compliant now. And so something would have to be changed with that. And so the driveway would require public space because of the distance between that and the next building or something like that. It would be good if you guys could figure out exactly what you needed from us, and then we could, talk about under what circumstances we would support it.
Okay, we'll certainly get back to you on that.
I mean, we want you here. We want to support you, so, but we just need the details.
And this is a resident who lives near the Burger King. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi. I just wondered, it's not been a problem lately, but years back, they used to have the drive-through, the speaker that people drive into and give their order extremely loud so that residents nearby would be interrupted in their windows or in their yard with, people ordering their food. Is there going to be, this might be a little premature because you're just talking about building now, but is there going to be still efforts to keep the sound at a manageable level?
Mark, this is Robert. Did you say that there was a study done or you guys addressed that in prior work?
There was, and it was breaking up a little bit. I didn't hear the complete question, but that's correct. About 6 years ago, we had a study done for the neighbors for the ancillary parking lot extension, and we did have to turn our drive-through down a little bit to accommodate the needs from the study. That's been done, and that'll continue to be done, when the remodel's completed. I don't think you've had any problems lately.
Okay. No, there hasn't been lately, but, it's not really been warm for everybody to have their windows open either. So I'm glad to hear that you're going to keep the sound the way it has been.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from commissioners?
No.
Gloria, I know you had a question or comment, so please feel free.
Yeah. Thank you, Monica. Thank you. This is Gloria Garcia, Garcia, Van Ness Main Street. I remember being at that meeting when you presented the other plans, and I don't remember the front having all of this black fencing or the ADA ramp. Is that ADA ramp necessary? Because it's really not adding to our streetscape. I was more excited before.
This is the same presentation as before. There's digital versus when we were there with you.
Yeah, it just looks so, it's not what I was expecting on the main street.
There are certain code requirements, and to provide an ADA ramp and steps, anything over 2 steps requires handrails, and anything with an ADA ramp over, is it 6 inches, Blake, requires a handrail as well?
Yeah, I believe so.
So this ADA ramp was in this ADA ramp is required in the front of this building.
We're bringing the front of the building up to compliance with code.
Hello? I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
We're bringing the front of the building up to compliance with ADA code.
And then are you going to have that elevator that was mentioned inside?
There is an elevator inside.
Okay. I don't know if you can do anything to make that look any better. How much seating is going to be out there with greenery? I remember greenery and seats and umbrellas from the last one. So
we did not present any umbrellas or greenery or seating.
Really?
Mark, are you aware of this?
That's what was mentioned at that meeting. I thought it was on the rendering.
We did not do. No, I did this rendering. I didn't. There's nothing.
Well, if anything, I would ask if there's any way that you can make it more streetscape. It's just more concrete and more runoff. So that's just my request. I'm gonna see if there's somehow we could get this to present to my design committee, Monica. I know we don't have any say, but maybe they can come up with some ideas.
I think you can have a conversation between the two of you, but we certainly can't tell them, my opinion. But yeah,
Gloria, certainly in terms of impervious surfaces, that's one of the issues that we would want to take up in any kind of discussion about permits and our support for permits. We would have to ask more concrete questions about whether there's going to be additional runoff.
So there's not going to be additional runoff. This is what you have right now. Can you see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
So
seeing the front of the store, or with the
old canopy that sticks out the front.
It's all gray right here.
Can you see it now?
Mm-mm.
It's not updating. I'm looking at the rendering.
In a second, it should update to the old version, which is existing.
Okay, hold on. It's slowly redrawing on my screen.
Okay.
So feel free to keep talking. It's just obviously.
Well, I was just going to say that right now it's 99% hardscape in front of the building. So I just brought up a Google Street View. You can see that.
But you're not changing it. It's still hardscape.
Well, I understand we're not increasing it. I don't know, Blake, is there a requirement for us to do additional on-site drainage and water treatment for it? Or if it's impervious and we're just going back with impervious, it's impervious? I don't know. It's not my area. Is there something that you know that we need to address? Blake, are you still on the call? If you're here, we can't hear you.
He's on mute.
I don't know if
You're
we're,
on mute. So I don't think we're going to sort this out tonight. I think that it sounds like maybe there's still some questions you need to ask of your architects, engineers, and vis-a-vis the city, what the requirements are, and then once that is established, the city will ask the ANC for us to give our great weight on what is being proposed. And
So,
when,
Mark?
when we have the full packet of information from you and the city, then we can have I think a better discussion.
So the process will be we will go to the city and submit, and they will reject us and tell us to come back to you?
No, the process is that you will have your discussions with the city and get clear on what's needed and put together. It does behoove you to come back to us before you do your final submission, and see what else we might consider or ask for that. So it goes into your final submission. Then the city will come to us and ask us for our recommendation on the permits on the public space application, as they do many other interested parties in the city on any such permit, and then they'll make their decision.
Mark, are you familiar with this?
But we're certainly not the experts on this development and permitting, but it sounds like you need to get some more advice and information about the process.
I think the way it was presented to me, that there are aesthetic review process that you would be involved with, and that for the type of work that we're doing, it would be something we present to you, and then you would give us guidance if it was something you terribly disliked or you were okay with, or the question kind of we're asking now. As far as the permitting goes, I'll have to talk to the owner, and we'll have to go and see what those are, and then come back to you, and then tell you what it is we're going to need to do. And it sounds like what you want to know is what it is you're reviewing, and I kind of understand that.
Well, I think you've heard two things tonight, that we would like a more aesthetically pleasing streetscape, and we'd like to reduce the permeable pavement, which you may need to do by city rules, or that would certainly be our request. It's a lot of concrete. We already have a big flooding issue on Connecticut Avenue, the water that's running down from the west because of the topography. And there's going to be a lot of work being done along Connecticut Avenue. We'd like your piece of it. It could be sort of at the vanguard or thinking through. I think Gloria has touched on some of those points. So I think involving the Van Ness Main Street Design Committee is another request we'd have.
Yep.
Blake, what can be done with the water runoff?
We might be able to, put some pavers in on different parts of the site that would, be pervious pavers, that would help mitigate some of the, fact that there's so much pavement out there already.
I think from Burger, this is Mark James again with Burger King. I think we're better understanding of where we need to be at this point to come back to you guys and say, hey, this is these are the things that are required, and this is where we're at. And if we can get on, if we'll do our research in the meantime, if we can circle back to you guys with the answers to your questions, that'd be great.
Some of the things that I can tell you is like anything that you're doing like on the sidewalk, that's public space. So any permitting so there'll be permitting involved there, and that will automatically be sent to us for review. So, talking about doing pavers and things like that, DDOT will automatically seek our input on that. Beyond that, unless you're doing something that requires a zoning variance of some sort, DCRA is probably not going to reach out to us for anything you're doing inside the building itself. So, we appreciate that you get our opinion for the aesthetics, and we ask that you work with Van Ness Main Street and Gloria Garcia to give us a nice look. Any other final comments from commissioners? Okay. Then thank you, guys. Let's just move on. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you
How
for
do
your
I
time.
stop sharing my screen?
Let's see.
Usually it's at the top. There's a red band or something to click.
Yeah, it just says stop sharing.
Yeah, there should be something up there that says stop sharing.
It stopped.
Okay.
Yeah,
There you go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have up DC Sake Company. And so, let's see, who
And Chair, can I plead with you? Can we stick to the timing on the agenda, please?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're going to move to those next big things very quickly. Lyle, I believe, would be up.
Yes, hello. Thank you for giving us a chance to present. DC Sake Company is the trade name of RH Trading LLC. They've applied for a Class A Internet retailer license, and they're going to be located. They're going to have storage at where Domain is, which is at 4221 Connecticut Avenue in the basement level. It's accessed off the alley. And the reason I asked to be placed on the agenda was because the original notice that's on, and the way ABRA does this with internet licenses is they say post the notice on the website. So the website is actually www.dcsake.com. So that's DC Sake, and as you can imagine, it's a kind of a niche operation. I'll let Reiko Harai talk about it, but it's essentially Japanese sake and somewhat stronger products. But we're asking the ANC support for a stipulated license, and that a stipulated license under the regulations allows the ANC, if it's willing to support or at least not object to, and have a vote to support or not object, to send a letter to ABRA or the ABC board saying that they're willing to do that, then that would allow the issuance of what's essentially a conditional license prior to the end of the protest period. And the protest period for this license was first placarded the first week of March. So the protest deadline normally would have been yesterday, but due to the public health emergency, we are all in the same swamp together. That has been extended twice. Those deadlines have been extended twice by ABRA, and now the deadline is June 1st. So in order to give DC Sake a break and help them get operational a little bit earlier than that, we're asking for a stipulated license. And there's Reiko, just popped up. You want to say something or respond to questions?
Of course. Hello, thank you for your time. My name is Reiko, and I am originally from Japan. I have loved Washington, D.C. so much. I've been in D.C. resident for in Washington, D.C. area for almost 20 years now. And the product that I am specifically wanting to share with the D.C. community, especially to start with, is a Japanese sake. If some of you may know, a lot of the great restaurants in Europe are starting to carry the sake at their restaurants, and I have seen a lot of the opportunity to work with the to have a opportunity for the people to taste some of those sake at some of the restaurants here in DC as well. However, when it comes to the retail side, I saw not many stores are carrying sake just because they're not as familiar yet. So I wanted to.
I'm sorry, I'm not getting any audio for some reason.
Oh, really?
I hear her loud and clear.
Yeah.
Yes, so do I.
Okay, great. So I wanted to take this opportunity to I work with the Embassy of Japan a lot as well, and Cherry Blossom Festival as well, and I just see a lot of potential, and I wanted to see if I could bring in this wonderful product we have in Japan.
Thank you.
Oh, you hear us? You hear me? For some reason, I can't hear you.
I
Yes,
can
I
hear
don't
you,
know why.
Lyle. I can hear you, Lyle.
Lyle, we hear you. We all hear you.
We all hear you, Lyle.
Okay.
So Monica, what action is needed from?
I guess if you have a question for me, if you could put it in the chat comments, because I can't hear you.
Is your volume on? Your volume? Let me text you.
Whose SMD is this?
This is
Carolyn.
Yeah. So in Carolyn
Okay.
has.
So we need to get an SA to them.
Yes. So I looked on the website, our standard templates, and so I didn't get a chance to pull together an essay because the essays we had were just PDF images, and so I had Carolyn pull together the essay that's for internet sales, internet retailers, and then we'll get an essay, settlement agreement over to them. And beyond that, I think we
Do
just
we
need
need to move on anything, or?
I think we just simply need a motion to approve this request for entry or
No.
shake your head.
I think we need, if we're going to do that, we need to do it contingent on them accepting the settlement agreement exactly as it is. If we can't, I don't know what else to do.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone have any better suggestions on how to vote on this today?
Well, that works for me. You go ahead and phrase the motion how you'd like, Andrea.
I haven't received a settlement agreement, but if the ANC wants to send one to me, we'd certainly entertain one.
Can you hear us again, Lyle? No.
I'm sending him the text.
Okay. Reiko, the settlement agreement typically talks about not having trucks pulling up at odd hours of the night.
Okay.
And it talks about not being in direct competition with some of the local liquor stores. That's a lot of what's in there. Is there anything else salient in there?
Not retail,
Monica?
so there's not parking issues.
Right. So that's essentially what's in there. If that sounds okay to you in principle, then we can vote tonight on whether to send a letter asking, voicing support for the stipulated license on the condition that you accept this SA as it is.
Right. So the as for the odd hours use of the ramp, we are internet business, so we're not. I am not definitely going in there in the very strange hours. I would like to know exactly what time that means, and the other thing about. I'm sorry. What was the other point?
Not in competition with the neighborhood retail out.
If there is any day that comes with the competition, I would love to see it. But as of right now, in my best of my knowledge, I am having a hard time finding a good sake in the area. So.
But you're not doing retail sales, correct? You're just doing internet sales.
Yes.
Yeah.
I am not. I don't have a physical store. It's more of an internet e-commerce.
Right, but basically at some point, some truck is gonna pull up to your store with deliveries for you, and then you're gonna be sending it out or shipping it out to your customers.
Yes, the orders that, at least for the very beginning, I am not in the, I am very small operation, so we're not talking about the huge truck coming in and out all the time. It will be, the one good thing about the e-commerce is that we don't have to have a huge shipment coming in all the time.
Okay. So if no one else, then I'm gonna make a motion to send a letter to ABRA in support of the stipulated license under the condition that they are willing to sign the settlement agreement. That's the standard one for the internet licensees at Domain.
Do we have a second?
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any objections? Abstentions? The motion is passed. I think that would make it.
Very much.
Thank you.
4-0. Is that what it is? We have 4 commissioners on?
Aye.
5. That's right, 5. So
Thank you very much.
you're very welcome.
You're welcome. Good luck with the business.
And we have to get them,
I'll
we have to
get
say to
you
them
the
soon.
settlement agreement with the right language in there in a couple of days.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hey, better. That 5 minute item only took 11 minutes.
Sorry. Pierce Mill. Pierce Mill grant application.
So let me just tee it up very quickly. I'm hoping that Steve Dryden from Pierce Mill is on the line. Are
Like
you
he
here,
is?
Steve? Okay.
There.
So Pierce Mill has applied to us during the regular grant cycle for a grant for $3,300. And basically it covers a couple of different items in there related to supplies and staff for some of the activities that they run at Pierce Mill. The grants committee, I guess, or I am recommending that we give them the grant. But let's hear from Steve and let him tell us some more details about what's going on there.
Steve,
Hello?
you speaking? We can't hear you. Hold on a second. You might be muted.
He's muted.
Yeah, I think he's muted. Can we?
He's muted.
Rachel, can you unmute him?
I think I did. I can't.
I see 2 connections. One is unmuted, one's muted.
Yeah.
His screen says he's muted.
Nope. Wait a second. Let's see. Now he's not muted. Steve, can you hear us?
He's still muted.
It still shows him as muted.
It is. Yep.
Rachel?
Hello.
Ah, here we go. Is that you, Steve?
Let me try this.
Hello.
Maybe because it's like your grandma. So I'm trying to figure out how to like do a video time.
Hey, Steve, are you there?
I'm unable to unmute him for some reason.
Steve, can you talk to us in the chat if you can hear us?
1 second. Let me try something.
I know Steve has waited patiently through this meeting to talk to us. I think we've heard about this grant before. I have a feeling there is support for it among the commissioners. Maybe if there's no strong objection, we could just go ahead and test that and then think move on to the approval.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I would like to know that he can hear us.
Type in the chat if you can hear us.
Yes.
Let me just see.
It seems like he's on 2 different devices.
Steve, can you disconnect from one of them? Oh, here we go. Something in the chat.
From Gloria. He's only on one device now. He's muted.
Steve, now can you unmute him? Rachel? Oh, here we go. Steve.
Hello. Hello.
All right.
Yay.
Hello.
Hey,
Testing.
yeah, hey, Steve.
Steve, welcome.
You can hear me?
We can hear you.
Now you're fading out though for some reason.
Okay. Well,
now my dog is barking, of course. I apologize for that. Hello.
Yes.
Okay.
hear you, Steve.
Well, as you know, the Friends of Pierce Mill is a long-time institution and or nonprofit in the area. We partnered with the Park Service to restore and reopen the mill in 2011. And we have been expanding our programs ever since in a sort of joint partnership, co-management with the Park Service. And as some of you know, I think we did receive a grant from ANC 3F a couple of years ago, a small one for our actually, it's called a barrel hoist, which is a part of the mill's flour moving mechanism. And that was very successful, and we were very appreciative. And so this year, we were interested in applying for a grant to help us with 3 different activities. One of them is our annual festival, which is in October. This is called Heritage Day, which of course, a number of your citizens are attending every year. We get close to 1,000 people at this all-day fair, which we demonstrate various old-time skills and blacksmithing and that kind of thing. The second part of the grant was for support for, the Heritage Day grant was actually to pay for a musician and for a blacksmith who are doing some of the demonstrations there. The second part of the grant was for the square dance, which was scheduled for June, or is scheduled for late June, and that was for the musicians for the square dance, another popular event. We've had up to 500 people for this. And the third part of the grant was for a series of children's family workshops we do at the mill each Saturday during the warm summer months, and this is helping to pay the fee for the educator who does this. We're doing crafts and other activities with children who come to the mill on Saturday morning. So those are the 3 items covered under this grant.
Thanks, Steve. I certainly if there's questions from the other commissioners, that would be great, but I'm certainly in support of awarding this grant.
I have no question. I think Pierce Mill is well beloved by the community, and I'm supportive.
I don't
Can
even
I make a motion? I move that we support this grant.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Objections? Abstentions? It passes 5-0.
Terrific. Now we just want
Yeah.
Thank you
times
very
to
much.
change, and we can all be square dancing at Pierce Mill this summer.
Right.
Thank you very much, Steve, for all your work.
Thank you, commissioners. I really appreciate this.
You're very welcome.
Thank you for all you do there. We appreciate that.
Yes.
Okay.
Very much looking forward to hanging out there. Okay.
Okay. Good night.
Bye, Steve.
Have a good night, Steve. Okay,
Q2 financial report. You should have received this today from Rachel. This covers the second quarter, which is of the district financial year, so January through March. We entered the quarter with $83,704.27 in our bank account. During the period, there were $10.12 in receipts, which were interest on the account. We dispersed $2,681.78 in personnel. $2,400 was our support for Forest Hills Connection that we voted on and approved in our annual budget. And $25 was our payment to the ANC Security Fund. Our disbursements equaled $5,106.78, and we ended the quarter with a balance of $78,607.61. I will let you know that we are in touch with the ANC office about they're a little behind in review of our financial reports, and anyway, it's ongoing. We are about due about 3/4 of payments from them, not including this financial report. Are there any questions?
I saw that email traffic, so no, thank you. None from me. Anyone else?
Is there a motion?
I move that we approve the quarter.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
One minor logistic note is it takes the signature of the treasurer, the chairperson, and the secretary certifying it. I was in touch with Gottlieb. We can pass this around by fax not fax, but scanning if that works for us, or we can wait until we can physically all sign it. I'll send you guys the option by email, and you can let me know what works.
Yeah, I have a scanner here, so if you send me like a page that's already signed, and then I scan it and send it out to.
I don't have a printer.
Okay.
Okay. We'll figure it out.
Figure it out.
I think once we just, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out.
Okay. With that, is there any other business?
Yes.
Okay.
Did you speak with Gloria about what to do with about doing a 15K thing?
I did not get a chance to. I got caught up with all sorts of stuff today, so I will.
Okay, all done.
So I will speak to her this week. So, yeah, the days in stuff sort of wound up taking up a lot of time calling and talking to people and such. Anyway.
Okay, well, I'd like to move that we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Done. Thank you very much, everyone.
Yeah, thank you. This isn't easy, Mike. You did a good job, though. I think we do have to watch on our agenda timings and then manage it.
I know.
Okay.
The days and thing really was.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah. Rachel, I've got notes. I'm going to send it to you and ask for you to compile minutes.
Okay.
And I'm going to also send you the minutes that we've approved and aren't posted on the website yet.
Okay, thanks.
Andrea, if Monica scans and signs this thing, do you feel comfortable distancing if we meet on the corner and?
Yeah.
Funny? Okay.
Yeah.
I'll be in touch. Okay, thank you, everybody.
Cool.
Good night.
Bye. Thanks, everyone.
And
welcome, David.
Welcome, David.
Hey, so glad to have you.
Thanks to be here. Have a good night. Till next time.
Bye.